Well, hello friends. Welcome to the second video of 2025. I am Seth, and I'm a full-time author. I write books for a living, and so I thought it would be really fun to talk about how I would think about establishing a new author career in 2025. Since you're here, do me a really quick favor. Hit like on this video and go ahead and subscribe as well. If you could also share the video with somebody you know who might want to be a full-time author, that would also be really helpful. But let's go ahead and get right into it. How would I plan a new author career in 2025? Well, the first thing I would start with is understanding my goal. When I initially set out to be a writer, it wasn't because I wanted to be a full-time author. That was the furthest thing from my mind. Instead, I just wanted to write books. And I wanted to share those books with other people. And then eventually I ran into this idea that, hey, maybe I could, publish some of my books and make some money and supplement my income that way. And so I tried that. And then once that worked, I was like, well, maybe I could try doing a little bit more of it. And I could increase my income by writing books on the side, side hustle thing. And so I did that. And then that got to the point where I was like, well, if I just did that twice as much and not my, sales job, then maybe that would work. And it did. And all of a sudden I was a full-time author. But what was important is that at each of these steps, I had a very clear goal. I knew exactly what I was trying to do, and I wasn't trying to do something else. So the first thing I would do if I was going to start a writing career in 2025 is I would pick my goal. I would try to determine what it was that I was trying to accomplish. And the way I would approach that is very simple. If I had no books written, then my only goal for 2025 would be to write 2 books. Now, I'd like to write 3. 3 would be an even better goal, but I'm going to say 2. And the reason is simple. I don't want to just say 1 book because then I'll probably lose momentum as I go through the year. But I need a little bit of urgency in my goal. But I also don't want to say 3 books or 4 books because if I've never written a book before, if I don't have any books, then the chances of me being able to write more than 2 books in a year, pretty low, right? So I want to give myself a fairly aggressive goal, but with a decent chance of hitting it. Now, if I had already written some books, then it's simple. My next goal would be to publish and sell those books. Now, you'll notice that I didn't just say publish those books because publishing is easy. Anybody can self-publish a book. You simply upload it to KDP and boom, you have a published book. No, you want to publish and sell those books. Because if you are just publishing a book and nobody knows anything about it, then you're not going to make any sales. And if you don't make any sales, then Amazon is going to recognize you as an author who doesn't make sales. And then every release you have after that will be harder. Okay, so we don't want that. We want to release a book and we want to sell the book. Okay, now, if I have already released and sold some books, then I would set my goal in 2 distinct parts. The first would be my writing habit. I would try to build a writing habit that is going to be incredibly sustainable over the long term so that I am continuing to produce content. And the second thing I would do is I would focus on building community. I wouldn't worry too much about advertising my books. I wouldn't worry too much about, posting about them in different channels and stuff, or marketing them, so to speak. Instead, what I would do is I would go about building community. I would try to find the people who have already read my book, right? Because remember, at this stage, I've already sold some books. I'm going to go and find those people, and I'm going to gather them together, and I'm going to start talking to them about what they liked about my book, and more importantly, what they didn't. Right? Because by understanding that, if I can, by the end of the year, come to a clear understanding of that, I'm going to be able to write my books even better for my audience. So those are sort of the 3 stages, right? So if you're just starting out and you don't have any books, then your first order of business is to write books, right? That's a good goal for you. But if you've written a couple of books, then your second order of business is to publish and sell those books. That's, again, a good goal for you. And if you've sold some books, then you want to make sure that you are focusing on that community building. But a goal in and of itself is not going to get you there. Everybody can build goals. It's execution that matters. So what I would do if I was looking at establishing a new author career in 2025 at any of those 3 levels is I would focus on activities that build longevity. Why is this important? The number of people who have come and gone as authors during my relatively short 5-year career is astronomical. It's simple enough to publish a book. You can even get a book and sell it to a few people. But doing it in a sustained way over a long term, it's really hard. It's really hard. And most people shoot themselves in the foot because they don't plan for longevity from the beginning. They're so focused on the immediacy of, oh, I've got to take the next action, I've got to take the next step, that they don't think to themselves, is this an action or a step that I can take 100 times or 1,000 times? Because if you can't take it 100 times, if you can't take it 1,000 times, then the chances are you're eventually just going to stop and you're not going to be able to continue on. So, as you're choosing your actions, right? We already have our goal. Maybe my goal is to write 2 books this year. Well, what do I need to do to get there? A lot of people would be like, I'm going to write 2 books. I'm going to write for 4 hours a day, every day, until my books are done. Okay, that's one way to approach it. But is that something that you can sustain in the long term? I mean, realistically, sustaining more than an hour of writing a day, if you are only writing part-time, is tremendously difficult. In fact, even an hour a day is hard when you have a lot of other responsibilities. Maybe you have another job, or maybe you have kids to care for. You know, there are all of these other things in life that we have to do. And so if we just rush into, actions we think are going to help us without considering, is this sustainable? Does this promote longevity? Then there's a high likelihood that we're just going to burn out. We're not going to actually be able to hit our goal. So the second thing that I would consider is, what sort of actions could I take that would give me longevity? Can I walk this road step by step instead of rushing, right? Is there a way that I can take actions that are going to build, each action building on the previous action until I get to the point where I'm able to sustain it forever? Because once I can do that, then it doesn't matter if it takes me a year, it doesn't matter if it takes me 2 years, it doesn't matter if it takes me 3 years. Eventually I'm going to get there. And I think that's what's really important, is that when we set these goals, we do so thinking, okay, I'm going to get there. This is absolutely certain because the actions that I'm taking can be repeated indefinitely, and eventually I'll do it, right? Eventually I'll get there. The third thing that I would really focus on is my writing habit. And this actually plays into longevity, but it also plays into my goal, right? Because no matter what my goal is, I always have to have content. I always have to have something to give to my readers. And whether I'm writing, 12 books a year, or I'm writing 1 book a year, or 1 book every 3 years even, I have to have content to give to my readers. Otherwise, they will go find it elsewhere, right? Because it's not enough to be a writer. If you want to be an author in 2025, you have to publish, you have to sell, right? So focusing on a writing habit that's going to constantly give me content that I can then give to my readers is going to be helpful at all levels. In fact, the further you go on your author journey, the more important it's going to be. I know we all hear about authors who, write a masterpiece and then they don't write anything for a really long time, and then they come out with something else and it's all, ultra successful. But the reality is that doesn't happen for like 99.99999% of people, right? That's just not how it works. And so having content regularly is probably the most pivotal part of being an author. Whether you're at the very beginning, right, just writing your initial books, or whether you are at the point where you are publishing and then selling books, or whether you're at the point where you have published and sold some books and now you are starting to gather your tribe, your audience to you, at all stages, you need content. You need something to give to your readers. And the more you can give to your readers, the more excited they're going to be about sticking around and reading more. So, focusing on writing habit, I think, is just so vitally important. So far, we have 3 things. First is the goal. Second is longevity of action. And the third is writing habit. But that's not everything you need. In fact, I would say that while those form sort of the basis for an author career, if I was building an author career in 2025, there are two other things that I would do to supercharge what I was doing. They are build a feedback loop so that I can continually improve as a writer, and set up a simple marketing plan that takes no effort to execute. I'm going to go through these briefly, and as I'm making this video, I'm realizing that I probably need to just do a video on all five of these things. So I will. But let me give you the rundown in brief. First of all, you need a feedback loop. You need people reading your content and then giving you feedback. And I'm not talking about a critique group. I'm talking about actual readers, people who would pay for the kind of content that you are delivering. Because if you don't have that feedback loop, then you are missing the most important thing, which is the reality of whether or not people want to read your writing. No matter how much other authors like your work, if your readers don't, then you're just never going to get anywhere. And so if I was an author setting up a new career in 2025, I would focus on finding places where I could give people content, probably for free, at least initially, and get feedback from them. There are a ton of amateur writing websites, and I think all of them have merit. But I cannot overstress how important it is to have that feedback loop where you are getting feedback from people who can tell you whether your content is actually any good. And again, I'm not talking about editors. I'm not talking about other authors who are going to tell you what good writing is. No, none of that matters. What matters is whether people will pay for your writing. And then the second thing that I would do is I would come up with a very simple marketing plan that can be executed without even thinking about it. It needs to take no more than 10 minutes a day, if that. I would love it even more if it took maybe 10 minutes a week to execute. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to pick a single platform, right? Either Facebook, either Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok, whatever you are most comfortable with. It could even be YouTube. And all you're going to do is post 2 to 3 times a week a relatively simple graphic of your book telling people about it. And then you're going to comment on other authors or other people who are in your genre. You're going to go and comment on their books, right? And you're going to promote their books. Rather than just focusing on promoting your books, you're going to actually start pushing readers to other people's books in your genre that have similar themes or are comps. If you're not familiar with the term, a comp is a comparable book. So you want to find comps, and then you want to go and you want to tell people about them, right? You want to be like, hey, have you seen this book? Have you seen this book? These are great books in the genre. And when people see those recommendations, if they read the book and they like the book, they're going to look for your books too. But more importantly, it's going to build camaraderie inside of the writer community. And it's an incredibly simple, incredibly easy marketing strategy that you can execute that will buy you endless goodwill, first of all, but second of all, is surprisingly effective for driving people to your content. So those are the two things that I would do if I wanted to supercharge my author career in 2025. I'd build a feedback loop, finding people who I could give my content to get genuine feedback about whether or not it's up to snuff. And then second, a simple marketing plan where I'm posting 2 to 3 times a week about my own content, but then every day I am promoting other people's content. If you made it to the end of the video, congratulations. Do me a favor, leave me a comment letting me know, are you going to be a writer in 2025? Are you going to publish any books? I'd love to hear your goals so that I can cheer you on.